Okay, so Parsha Shelach, obviously one of the most infamous episodes in Tanakh, in the Chumash, the episode with the Meraglim. There are a lot of lessons that can be learned from the Meraglim being recorded for us in the detail that it's recorded in the Torah. But I want to basically bring out 2 points that are connected and apply very much to Bein Hazman and apply to the summer vacation that we're going to have. So the first is like this. When it comes to the Meraglim, Rabbi Berger, I once heard from him, mentioned that you see from the 2 of the Meraglim that remained tzaddikim, they did not succumb to the negative talk and negative perspective that the other Meraglim embraced, the other 10. In general, you see the power of negativity, of how looking at one thing, the same thing can be looked at in 2 ways. The big, huge grapes can be scary because of what they imply, or wondrous for what we're going to get. See the power of what kind of perspective you take on things and how important it is to try to always have that positive perspective with belief in Hashem. Rabbi Berger mentioned that the 2 tzaddikim who remained tzaddikim, Yoshua and Kalev, took very different approaches. And really, they outlined for us 2 distinct approaches that any one of us can take when we deal with the outside world. When we're within the Kosle Beis HaMedrash, when we're within the blot room, when we're on yeshiva campus, it might be easier to not necessarily have to embrace fully any one of these approaches, but when you really go and interact with the world, which you'll all have at least to some degree, at some point, more opportunities to do during Bein Hazmanim, there are 2 distinct approaches. There's the Yehoshua approach, which was, you guys are going off and speaking negatively about Eretz Yisrael. That's not for me. See you later. I'm distancing myself from you. And that's clear from the fact that it was Kalev at the end who was Vayahas. He was the one that was able to quiet the nation, to quiet the other 10 Meraglim. They wanted to hear what he had to say, but it wasn't Yehoshua who was able to do that. Because Yehoshua, from beginning to the middle to the end, made it clear, I have nothing to do with you. I am distancing myself from you. I will remain true to who I am and make that very clear from beginning to end. And therefore, he had very little to no connection with the other 10 Meraglim. And then there's the Kalev approach, which is go in, be mixed together with those people. Get together with them. Get inside their minds and hearts. At least on the outside, and it probably has to be true in certain ways on the inside, connect with them. Because if there's 0 genuineness to it, it will never fly. There's got to be certain aspects you can always find good in someone to connect with, no matter what. That was the Kalev approach, and then to come out and say, 1 second, you guys are making a huge mistake. You guys have the wrong idea here. So there's the Yehoshua approach and the Kalev approach. The Yehoshua approach of staying away from it all, and the Kalev approach of being involved in the midst of it, but still remaining deep down true to who you are, and perhaps being able to thereby even make a certain level of influence that the Yehoshua approach would not allow. But on the flip side, it's dangerous, it's risky. Because the more involved you are, the more it can affect you as a person. And so Yehoshua is the safer approach, just stay away. Berger ended with the importance of having a kehila and a rav and good chaverim is because we're living in a door, in a gullus, that has to be the Kalev approach. Living in the Medina Shel Chesed of America is a place where we have a karas hatov. There's real goodness that comes from the country. We have to recognize that. I don't know if you guys know that Yeshiva Philadelphia sings the national anthem and pledges the Pledge of Allegiance during their 12th grade graduation ceremony. There's actually a video of it online. And our own Rav Sheftel Neuberger is there present at the ceremony as the guest speaker. I mean, for that video, he's just standing there, but that's why he was there. I saw him in 7 Mile tonight, and I asked him. But they pledge allegiance, and they sing the national anthem in Yeshiva Philadelphia, with Rav Shmuel standing there, and others, Rav Shalom and others, and Rav Sheftel was there, all together. Some of the Bachrim had some good harmonies on the high parts of the national anthem. That was part of the graduation ceremony, because it's true. We have a karsa tov to this Medina Shel Chesed. It's an amazing thing where we are and what we can do. But the flip side of that, or the risky part of that, is not to be influenced. If the czar is just trying to kill you every move you make, there's very little chance you're going to be like, oh, I want to be like the czar. What kind of clothes does he wear? Maybe I should dress like him. What kind of music does he listen to? Maybe I should listen to that music. How does he speak? I want to speak like him. He's trying to kill you every second. But in America, there are plenty of good people, but even those people that can influence us l'ra, for the bad, there's a lot of goodness, there's a lot of kindness, there's a lot of mixing together with the society around us. And it's by force. It's the way that it's supposed to be. It's the way that it has to be. But it means we have to take that Kalev approach. Kalev B'dafka went and he davened by the Kivrei Avos in Hebron to get chizuk, to get siyata d'shmaya. And that's something that we have to daven for. And we go out into Bein Hazmanim, whether we're going to be in a camp the whole time or we're going to be in more of a kiruv situation some of the time. We're still traveling in between. There's still plenty of interaction. And it's a kedai, it's a worthwhile thing to daven that we should remain true to who we are. And on this point, I want to add one nakuda. One Rashi in this week's Parsha says that the Meraglim were tzaddikim at the beginning. That's why they were chosen. Another Rashi in this week's Parsha says that the Meraglim already had evil intentions from the beginning. They already had an evil plot from the beginning. How do we reconcile these two Rashis? Some of the Mefarshim explain simply. When they were chosen to be the Meraglim, they were tzaddikim. When they embarked on their mission, they already had the evil plot worked out. The intentions were already set. How much time was there between those two? It's not clear in the Psukim, but seems pretty little. Seems like they asked for the spies. Hashem said, gave them permission to have it. They chose them and they went. They got some instruction from Moshe and they went. So there was very little amount of time between them being chosen and them embarking on the mission. And yet in that small amount of time, a dramatic shift happened. From tzaddikim, chosen for the mission amongst all of Klal Yisrael, to Rishayim, who die a gruesome death, make a massive chil Hashem, are the cause for 40 years in the desert, instead of just entering in the moment, within hours or within days. Unbelievable shift. So one Musar Haskell to take from the Meraglim is that while we may have to embrace the Kalev approach and there's risks involved, there is reward involved too. The potential for Kiddush Hashem is way greater than if we just take a Yeshua approach and distance ourselves. And by force in this society, we have a Kalev approach where we're all around each other. The potential for Kiddush Hashem is awesome, and you should always be paying attention to yourself. What do you look like? How are you speaking? You threw something towards a trash can on the street and it misses. It may seem like not such a big deal to not pick up your tissue and put it in and just continue crossing the street. Like 10 people before you, look at all the tissues on the ground. But if you do that, it might make a small chil Hashem. If you purposely go and pick up the tissue and put it in the garbage because it missed, it makes a Kiddush Hashem. Shows that you care about your surroundings. And you're clearly identifiable as a Jew, as a religious Jew. These are the types of things we have to keep in our minds everywhere we are, everywhere we go. Do you hold the door open for someone? Do you let someone go first? Do you give up your seat for an older person? Etc., etc. All sorts of small things that can add up, each one of them, to another and another and another chashav Kiddush Hashem during Bein Hazmanim. These opportunities are going to be all around us. And it's not just when we're around Goyim. It's around Jewish people also. By the way, there might be even more of a potential, if some of you will for sure understand what I'm saying, when it comes to Jewish people who are more quote-unquote modern than us. There might be even more potential there for this idea of giving off a certain impression than even when it comes to Goyim. Okay? That can be different depending on the community and depending on the circumstance. So here we are taking this Kalev approach, and there's a risk involved, and we have to understand the risk is massive and it can happen suddenly. It's not like we could just say to ourselves, okay, Zman is over. I made a commitment not to listen to Goyish music for the whole Zman. Zman is over. Finally, I can let loose a little bit and listen to Goyish music for one day. It's not the way things work. It's Bein Zmanim. You have plenty of free time. Whatever the boundary is, I picked one. It could be a million different things. Whatever those boundaries are, if you relax it a little bit, it continues to get more and more and more relaxed over time. And it's very difficult to say, oh yeah, one day and that's it. 1 hour and that's it. Very difficult. You want to maintain the boundaries and the madregos that you got to within yeshiva when you're outside of yeshiva also. Of course, the schedule's lighter, the opportunity to do all sorts of different types of things are amazing to do during Bein Hazmanim, but you have to maintain being true to who you are on the inside, with the midos, with the derech eretz, with a certain connection to Torah, of being a ben Torah, recognizing the chashivas of Torah and its place in the world, etc. The Meraglim shifted dramatically so quickly. It's something we have to really take to heart. Something that we have to has to make us take seriously how quickly we ourselves could change. And I want to leave you with one practical tip. We spoke about different practical ideas, but one practical general idea that I think you also see from another part of the parsha. So Chazal tell us that we learn minyan. We learn that you need 10 people for a minyan from Ada, from the word Ada, by Meraglim, right? So here we are, a Gemara in Brachos, I believe, right? Gemara in Brachos, I think. Right? Are we all in agreement about that? Good. So you still remember your Masechta Bechina from 2 years ago. So, what? Last year. Okay. So a little less impressive. So you have a Gemara that says that the word Ada by the Meraglim teaches us minyan. That's what teaches us that there were 10 Meraglim called Ada. And so too, when it comes to Jews coming together to daven, you need 10, you need to have a minyan. We learn it out from the Ada of the Meraglim. What a strange place to learn it out from. You have 10 people coming together to conspire against Hashem and against Moshe and against going into Eretz Yisrael, and there's 10 people, and that's where we learn minyan out from. It's 10 people coming together and davening to Hashem. A little bit of a strange connection. But I think exactly this phenomenon that we're discussing here is the point. How could it be that they shifted so dramatically, so quickly? How could it be they were tzaddikim? And the answer is Ada, minyan, achdus. Achdus latov, and there's achdus lara. We see it already by Migdal Bavel and all that's discussed there, and how their downfall was their separation from each other. And obviously we see it for good all over the place. Achdus. But it is from the fact that there was a group, a chashuv, a group of 10, that once the ball started to roll in the direction of negativity, it got out of control really fast. And we all know this to be true personally. We all might have accidentally spoken a little lashon hara or made fun of a certain person or laughed at a bad joke about someone or something inappropriate one-on-one, and that's kind of the end of it. But if there's a crowd, if there's 5 people, 7 people, 10 people, then the joke, and then someone else adds something to it, and someone says a related joke, and everyone's laughing, and then there's a little bit of a pressure to continue it, and there's enough people to allow it to continue. And the peer pressure essentially gets more people involved because they're all there together, and something that would have just been one isolated thing becomes blown way out of proportion very quickly because you have a group. That's the power of peer pressure. And I believe that that's part, at least, in what happened with the Meraglim. That you had an Ada of 10 people explains how they could shift so dramatically from positive to negative, from tov to ra, just in a small amount of time from when they were chosen to when they embarked on their mission. So we're the Kalev in this generation. We have to be able to be within the midst of all the different influences. The advertisements are all around us. You cannot escape it. Someone might say, okay, I'm not going to have a smartphone. No smartphone. Great. You definitely decrease the chances of being influenced or being exposed to certain influences. You decrease the chances. But I have a question. When you're driving on the New Jersey Turnpike from Baltimore to New York, are you going to close your eyes when the billboards start to come into view? because there's some highly inappropriate billboards. Maybe they're not as bad as this or that. Everything has levels to it. But the society's messages and influences are all around us. You can't escape it completely. Impossible. You already had Hasidic Rebbes remarking about how their Hasidim saw less inappropriate material in a lifetime when they were in the shtetl in Europe than they see now taking a bus from Williamsburg to Manhattan. And this was said in the 1950s. Imagine what such a Hasidic Rebbe, if he was alive, would say today. It's unimaginable to people who lived back then and are not alive now. Unimaginable. But slowly things change, and then you have this huge change when you look and compare the different generations. It's all around us. Can't close your eyes while you're driving. Definitely not a mitzvah. I would say it's an avera. So you don't want to do that. So what do? We have to be that kalev. We have to be mechazik ourselves. We have to start off every single day with a good tefillah, with a little bit of learning, and surround ourselves with good friends so that we can be mechazik ourselves from within, be mechazik our friends, take chizuk from our friends. It's so crucial, especially during the summer. If you're in a camp or you're at home and there are different friends to hang out with, do your best to, as much as possible, you don't have to become enemies with anyone, but as much as possible, spend more and more time with those people who you know will be a better influence on you than others. Everyone knows which friends will be, let's not call anyone a bad influence. Everyone knows which friends can be a better influence, and let's just say a power of influence. Everyone knows that there are different groups like that or different individuals like that. Work on trying to spend a little bit more time with those who can be a good influence, a better influence. It is that peer pressure that can create such a dramatic shift in such a short amount of time. You want to be able to come back at the beginning of this man, similar and close to where you were at the end of the previous man. By the way, it's a huge skula, quote unquote, to having a happy beginning of the Zman, right? Beginning of the Zman is very difficult for most Bachar. You come back after a long break, and all of a sudden you're back to a long schedule. There's no escaping that. Most people are not keeping close to long schedules over the course of the summer, so that's going to be a shock no matter what. But if you add to that shock that you also lowered your level, your sensitivities, who you're hanging out with, what you're talking about, what you're doing, and then all of a sudden you come back to the yeshiva environment, and it's a long schedule, plus totally different in your environment than the environment you surrounded yourself with the whole summer, it's a shock to the system, and it's really hard to get back into it. It takes quite some time. So let's try to stay with where we are now. Let's try to even raise the level a little bit, not schedule-wise and minutes of learning, just who we are as a person, what we care about, what we're machshiv, what we're careful with, not engaging in, not looking at, not listening to. Surrounding ourselves with the right friend is a tremendous practical tip in terms of actually trying to reach that goal. And let that be the lesson that we can learn from Ada and the Meraglim, being called and being referred to as the source for the chashav thing of tefillah b'tzibur, of minyan. Meretz Hashem, through such a lesson, through all the lessons that we've discussed over the year and the different chaburas that we've had, Meretz Hashem will give the Ribbon Shalom so much nachas that now already he'll bring us the Gula Shalem here. Amen. Have a great Shabbos.